Hello and welcome to the Huddersfield Town preview show in association with SportsBroker. I'm pleased today to be joined by Huddersfield Town goalkeeper Nicholas Bilokapic and the Examiner Stephen Chicken. How are you both doing today?
Good, thank you.
Excellent. Nick, if we start with you, your name's one that people will be more familiar with this season, having been involved with the first team a little bit more while Ryan Schofield's been out injured. How has that experience been from you, being more involved with the first team in training and on the bench rather than the B team setup, which is your usual home at the club?
Yeah, for me, the experience has been surreal. Starting sitting on the bench quite a few times now. Every time I sit on the bench, it just feels like a new experience. Feels like it gets better and better every time I sit there. In terms of training, the level of just competing with professional footballers at the high standards is just unmatched. So it really drives you and pushes you to try and go for higher achievements, I guess.
I know Clem's quite insistent that the goalkeepers across the club have a real union and a real unity to what you're doing. And, you know, when we see you guys train, you're always involved with Lee. Even before a game, it's not as if it's specifically tailored to him. There's quite a lot of equality in the goalkeepers at the club, I think. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, to be fair, Clem does a good job of just trying to keep the keepers in their own sort of bubble. Even though we're joined with all the players, you'd like people to think that when we're walking past or when we're just doing things, that's a goalkeeper. He's a goalkeeper. Yeah. So in terms of that, it just he just wants us to respect everyone and to just respect ourselves. Do
you think that's sort of a nice part about being at the club then, the fact that we do have that setup and that ability, especially between the B team and the first team, to sort of still have that feeling of being part of something rather than it almost feeling like you've just been sort of pushed into a situation?
Yeah, no, to be fair, the coaches down at the B team, they do well to prepare you for the next stage. So when you do get up to that stage, it's sort of like, it's not a panic stage. It's more just ease your way into it. And the coaches in the first team and the players in the first team as well, they help young players. They tell them what they're doing wrong, what they're doing well, and helps.
Oh, that's good to hear. Stephen, obviously you're very aware with how our academy setup and B team setup is at present and the changes we've made. You sat with me last time the B team played in the Premier League club at the John Smith Stadium against Watford, which Nick kept a clean sheet in that 6-0 win. Do you think this is a good sign for Huddersfield and the way we're currently operating, that we are able, when a more senior goalkeeper is out, to happily promote from our academy and have some confidence in them? Because it's not just been Nick this season, although it's been him more often than not. Gio's done it as well. And even in other games before, in the pre-match warm-up, we've seen under 19s and under 17s people like Michael Aqua being involved as well.
Yeah, I think it's obviously something the club are quite keen on, not just for goalkeepers, but sort of across the board the last couple of seasons. And we've seen a fair few academy players come into the first team, obviously most notably Lewis O'Brien and Scott High, and, you know, Ryan Schofield as well came in last season, was trusted to go with the second half of the season. And I think it sort of spoke volumes that, you know, Town could, let's be honest, quite easily have gone out and got a third keeper. You know, that they had 3 last year with Joel Pereira brought in on loan as well to add cover behind Ben Hamer alongside Ryan. But they made the decision this season that actually they just need the 2. They were happy with Lee Nichols and Ryan Schofield, and I think that sort of is a bit of a vote of confidence for the academy goalkeepers, that it's, look, we're confident that if something were to happen to one of the keepers, we've at least got someone we're very happy to have on the bench. And obviously, you know, if, you know, you don't want to lose a key player, obviously, but, you know, if Lee Nichols were to, you know, turn up feeling unwell in a warm-up or something, then Nick could get his chance. So the club seem very comfortable with that. I know that Clem is very big on, you know, on the youth promotion, and he works with goalkeepers at all levels. And Carlos is, from everything we've spoken to Carlos about, he seems quite happy to sort of trust Clem's judgment on where the goalkeepers are.
Yeah, Nick, Stephen mentions a sort of a vote of confidence with the fact that, you know, the likes of you and Gio are trusted to be on the bench, and it's not just a short-term thing. You've been on there for the majority of the season now. Does that feel good to you? Is that something that sort of does give you a bit of inner confidence and a bit of pride, the fact that the club have backed you in that way?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like just small things like that, it just builds trust, and you feel like the coaches are right behind you, and that, yeah, I guess that they're just there to support you. So you can't say no, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. When you've got minutes in the B team, do you feel like that experience of training with Lee and training with Clem in the first team environment has sort of helped bring your game on? Do you feel more confident in when you step out for the B team and things like that?
Oh, 100%, 100%. In terms of just training with Lee, someone who's built sort of in my character, my sort of build, I feel like learning off him is excellent, because it's sort of similar, even though he's a lot much bigger than me in terms of physicality. Just learning off him telling me just little things, just in how to improve, what to do, what I'm doing wrong. It helps. It helps a lot. It helps a lot.
What are the sort of biggest changes and challenges then between the B team and the first team? I mean, the most obvious thing probably would be that, you know, when you're training out on the field and the visibility of there being many more fans there, is there, you know, are people asking for more pictures? Is the awareness of who you are gone up? Is, you know, one or two choice things being thrown at your way when we're in an away game or something like that? Is that all part of the experience?
Nothing's been thrown at me yet, but nah, just the atmosphere is just it's unbelievable. I feel like the fans really do get behind you, even when we go out for the warm up, when we walk out or jog out, fans are just there clapping us, which gives it a bit of like excitement that you're ready to train, you're ready to play, and yeah, I feel like if they're backing you, then anything can happen.
I meant throw at you verbally rather than physically,
Oh.
Nick, by the way. That might have been lost in translation. I know you've been in Huddersfield for a few years now, but there's still some Aussie in you, I guess. Stephen, do you think it's a sign of another, you know, positive sign of Lee Nichols' involvement in the squad that, you know, somebody like Nick feels so comfortable around him? Because you do hear stories of goalkeepers who can be quite insular and don't want to mix their training times with younger goalkeepers because they want to concentrate on their game a lot more. You know, the clean sheets he's kept and the performances he's put in have obviously been excellent, but is it more of a big green tick against his character as just a bloke around the place that somebody like Nick or Gio or even Michael Aqua are so happy in his presence and so comfortable around him?
Yeah, and I think that's something, certainly sort of the 2.5 years I've been covering the club has always seemed to be the case with the goalkeepers, that, you know, it is that cliched goalkeepers union where, you know, you're a tight-knit unit and you're all there to drive each other's standards. You know, I think sort of every goalkeeper that we've spoken to over the past few years, whether that be Jonas Lösel, you know, Kamil Grabara, Ben Hamer, Ryan Schofield, they'll all talk about how you're trying to sort of drive each other's standards. And I think that's even more pronounced with the goalkeepers than it is with outfield positions, because I think with goalkeepers in particular, there tends to be a clearer pecking order. The goalkeepers are less readily, you know, rotated. You don't see them taken in and out of games very often. And I think that part of the job is patience. And I think that everyone understands that. I think, you know, the keepers that Town have had, they've all been at all different stages of the game where they've been a young player coming through, or they've been on the bench fighting for a place, or they've been the number one sort of protecting their spot. And I think that there's that understanding that what is good for sort of one of you is going to be good for the whole group.
Yeah. Is that something that's helped you sort of settle in, Nick? Because obviously people will be able to tell from your accent you're not from around here. You came here from Australia when you're even younger than you were now. You obviously came with Jacob Chapman, who's another one of our B team goalkeepers who's on loan with Gateshead at the moment. Is that sort of environment something that's allowed you to feel more settled and be more at home at Huddersfield and at the club than might have been the case elsewhere, given that you've come so far from home to play your football?
Mm-hmm. I think in terms of that, when it comes to training, I think Clem pushes us to be at our best every single day. So I feel like bringing that competitive spirit, that spirit to strive for the best.
Yeah.
I feel like it does get a lot of good out of the keepers, especially.
What's been sort of your experience of Huddersfield and the town more personally than away from football? Because obviously, is it a huge move to have made from Sydney to Huddersfield? West Yorkshire and Sydney are not the same in any particular way. I think the only sort of overlap between Huddersfield and Sydney is probably our love of rugby league, but other than that, there's not much there.
Yeah, no, to be fair, before I came here, I hadn't seen snow. So when it came to Christmas time last year, it hit me quite as a shock. It was nice for the first couple of days when it first fell, but then when we had to train and it turned into like slush and mud, it just wasn't a nice experience.
This is how it is with snow. It's good for the first day or two, and then that's it. Like 1 or 2 days a year for me, and then that's it.
Yeah, that slush seems to take about 3 months to disappear as well, because it's never warm enough to fully go. Is that something that sort of was the same for you and Chappers then? Did you both have to have that moment like, oh God, what's this about? What are we training in this?
I'm not sure about Chappers, but when I came like half a year after him.
Okay.
Just under a year after him. So I'm not sure if he experienced it before me or not, or if he's been to the snow in Sydney, but yeah.
Is there snow in Sydney?
There's like ski places where you can go.
Oh, right, okay. So is that artificial then rather than actual snow?
Oh, no, you have the mountains where you can go, but it's just probably more south. I don't live south, so.
Oh, I'm showing my ignorance of the Australian geography there. I apologise.
Outrageous, right?
One of the things that we've spoken about previously, Nick, in and around the training ground is your parents obviously doing their best to keep up with your career as much as they can from Australia, which is hard because there's certain games, if we're not streaming them or what have you, that it's harder for them to keep abreast of. What's it like for them to watch your career progressing from afar? I imagine they're really proud to see, Nicholas Bilokapic on the bench in the Championship.
Yeah, they are very proud. It is quite difficult due to the time zones, obviously, but they do their best. They try and, if I'm on the bench, they try and get up for the games. If I'm playing with a B team, they get up for the games. If there's a stream on, they'll definitely watch it. If not, they'll just go on Twitter and just look at the live updates. But they do their best to keep up with it all.
Is that quite nice to know that you've got that support coming from back home then?
Yeah, of course. You always like it when your parents are calling you. Sometimes it's a bit like, I'm just going for training, but nah. It's always good to hear their voices.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Obviously, it's been hard for you as well with the pandemic and everything on. You've not been able to get home. Obviously, your international duties for Australia just haven't been as readily available as they would have been otherwise with everything that's been going on. Yeah,
I think it's just for everyone at the moment, just these strange times. Not only for myself, but yeah, like I said, for everyone. It'll end one day, I guess. But
hopefully, fingers crossed, we're almost there. Yeah. Stephen, for you, when you sort of see younger players coming through and you sort of see the sort of confidence the club has placed in them, do you think that's a healthy thing for a club like Huddersfield, a healthy position for us to be in, because we're not as reliant on the transfer market or trying to be as involved in there as we might be otherwise, because this, the overall thinking behind having the B team and having this sort of setup was to create our own talent. And this is as big of an example of that as anything else.
Yeah, I think it's what every club wants, isn't it? Like you're adding an extra degree of sustainability. And I think it's not just clubs like Huddersfield. I think probably everyone from, from Goalkeeper United through to Barcelona wants to have their own players coming through, and I think it's it makes it a lot easier for you to run as a club on and off the pitch if you do have talent coming through on that production line, because let's face it, every club is a selling club, and that is the end game, I think, with a lot of academy talents. But before you get there, you want to enjoy their best years, and if you get players that can come through and put in years worth of performances and help the club get to the next level, then that is obviously a transfer fee you've saved. And I think it's important for the fans as well. Like, I think the fans always like seeing young players coming through, whether they're from, down the road in Slough or they're from Australia. The fact that they've come through your academy, I think, is a point of pride for the fans. So yeah, I think there's positives all around with it, really.
Yeah, of course. There's plenty of examples of people that have come through the Huddersfield Academy that aren't local, but have been adopted as such regardless. Do you feel like an honorary Yorkshireman at all yet, Nick?
I like to say I haven't lost my accent or I haven't lost my Australian sort of twang, but I feel like people are telling me that I'm slowly developing into one. So
that's good to hear. Obviously, with the game against Millwall on Saturday, it comes a week after our last game against Bournemouth, which you're on the bench for. What's the mood been around the first team this week? Obviously, that result didn't go the way we wanted it to, but the lads will have got that out of their system quite quickly. Is the confidence back up and wanting to show more of what we're about against Millwall at home this Saturday?
Yeah. To be fair, after the Bournemouth game, the lads pretty much switched and just straight away moved on to the next one. However, they obviously did review the game. They now put all their focus into Millwall, and I think everyone's ready to play. Everyone's ready to come out in front of the home fans, ready to perform, ready to show that they can play at the highest standard. And
obviously, we touch wood, nothing does happen. But as Stephen says, if anything did happen to Lee Nichols at the moment, do you in yourself feel confident and in the right position to, if you're called up and need to step in, do you feel confident in being able to do that?
Yeah, I feel confident. I feel like you need to have a bit of confidence. So I feel obviously having the coaches behind you, backing you, telling you that you're not the number two, but you're ready to step in if anything does happen at this point in time, then
feels good.
This just feels good. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. That's good to hear, and I'm sure it gives town fans confidence as well, hearing that from you as well. Stephen, if you could provide a bit of insight for us into Millwall before they come on Saturday. They're on a good run. They've got a couple of scalps in their past couple of games. I think in their past 5 they've won 4 of them. So are we going to be facing another confident side who are, probably going to be coming into this game expecting a positive result for them?
Yeah, I think they've only lost 1 of their 7 away games this season, and there's only Bournemouth that have gone unbeaten away from home. So they've got a lot of draws, I think it's fair to say. And this season they're sort of drawing home and away, but as you say, they've hit on that run of form now. 4 wins in the last 5, and they have been tough games at the John Smiths. I think, Town. One of their best performances last year was at the Den, and they got that 3-0 win. But they drew against them 2 years ago. They lost last year. And Carlos, I know when we put that term in the press conference, we'll be saying it doesn't matter. It's all about what they do on the day, and I think there's some truth to that. But I think it is a tough game. I think it's not the game you necessarily want to have when you're trying to sort of rebound from a defeat, but on the other hand, if you win it, then it's the perfect game to rebound from a defeat. So, yeah, they're tough opposition. We know, they've got threats like Jed Wallace has got 5 goals, 4 assists this season. He's a big player for them, but they've got other players who are capable of providing a threat. They've had a few goals from defenders this year, same as Town, and I think it could be quite a robust battle as you normally expect from Millwall.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Obviously, Town have faced a few teams that are on good runs this season. Blackpool had come off the back of a good result. Blackburn had, as did Luton, and all 3 of those were positive results for the club. So it's not as if it's the end of the world if we're facing another team in form. And I think the club have shown that, especially bouncing back from defeat as well. They seem to get it out of their system quite quickly, which is a great trait to have. Nick, if I just ask you my last question before we wrap up. Stephen mentioned Carlos, and I've not asked you about him yet. He when he played was a goalkeeper, funnily enough. Have you had much to do with the head coaching around the first team, or when you're having your meetings? Obviously, is he somebody that his knowledge for the game and enthusiasm for everything that's going on, is that something that's helped you learn more about sort of professional football?
Yeah, I think him coming in, trying to incorporate his new sort of ways and styles of play, it really does open sort of like a broad sort of system to what your understanding is of football. So just learning all these new concepts of play, I feel like it does sort of, when you first learn about it, it does sort of catch you off guard. But like when you keep doing it every single day and the repetition builds,
yeah,
I feel like when everyone's on the same page and when he's there telling you what to do and how to do it and just creating that sort of sense of practice, it does sort of build good relationships in the team. And yeah.
I noticed that in the Watford game with your body language and the way you'd shape up when you got the ball was quite similar to Lee Nichols, the points out to the fullbacks and getting your men organised. And it seems to be, we like the town like to have the same system in the B team that they have in the first team.
Yeah, 100%. Trying to just build a culture within the club, which I think is excellent.
That sounds good. I think that's a great note to leave it on, Nick. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to Stephen. Obviously, we'll be back with extra time after the Millwall game. And thank you again to SportsBroker for making the show possible.